Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Write an Adventure, our ongoing live stream where we are creating a completely custom domain from scratch, showing you all the thought processes, and ideas that go into the process, so that you can kind of see the whole thing warts and all, at least following my paradigm. I'm RJ Kerr. I'm your host, as always. And if you're joining us for the very first time, we are working on building out a unique campaign, including a totally original domain of Dread that we are creating every piece for from scratch as we go. So we've already done a lot of work on this. We have figured out how our characters are going to get into this domain of Dread through a portal that opens up on the Blood Moon. We have figured out what kind of motivations our characters would need to get drawn into this world. We figured out where they land in a shanty town called Darkport on the edge of an inland sea. And we figured out that that inland sea is a big part of this domain of Dread. That it was once a basin of a thriving metropolis that's now fallen into ruin and flooded. And also that this domain of Dread holds an elemental evil called Ovander. And we're figuring out exactly how that elemental evil fits into this world. We've built our very first adventure for this, where the characters are briefly kidnapped, or I should say, are kidnapped and then briefly enslaved, and have to escape their captors. And in doing so, discover the existence, or rumors of the existence, of a long lost artifact that gives the wielder some power over this domain of Dread. And it becomes apparent that this is their best opportunity for escape. So we've taken things a step further now, and the characters in our minds have escaped their captivity, are now getting proactive. So they have the opportunity to go out and explore the world and follow up clues and try to find this artifact. And so we've been using a node structure style for this, in which we put clues out into the world and we allow our characters to find them and then follow those clues to their lead to an investigative scene or another node where they can interact, maybe through an encounter, maybe through a skill challenge, maybe through a mini adventure, find other clues, and move on to other nodes, other investigative scenes. And this gives them a ton of agency while still allowing us some structure to build this off of. Now, we've already kind of brainstormed a bunch of that out, and we've worked on our first adventure for that using a 5-room dungeon model, and now we are working on building out a heist-style adventure for one of our second ones that we're calling the Ghost Ship Castle Caper. Now, we've already done a lot of work on this. We are almost to the completion point. We've been using a 5-scene dungeon model that is very similar to the 5-room dungeon model, with the exception that we're kind of envisioning these scenes as moments in the adventure as opposed to physical places. And today, we are putting in one of the last steps in this design, and that is part of the entry to any good heist, the heist planning portion, where the characters have got information or seeking out information to sort of plan their incursion into this stronghold, to figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to go about it. So we are going to be working on making the map today for that. Now, I asked you guys in the chat before what kind of map making software you wanted to use, and the universal answer was Inkarnate. And so we are going to be playing around with Inkarnate today as we begin building out that map based off of our adventure. And like any part of the creative process, this is going to involve some brainstorming. It's going to involve sort of piecing together some of the other ideas that we have, maybe going back and changing things and adding things and adapting things that are already in our adventure. So without any further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen. I'm here on Inkarnate. I will tell you that I went ahead and got the pro version for this. So we've got kind of all the bells and whistles that come along with it. So if you're using the free version, some of the stuff may not be available to you, but be honest with you, pricing for Inkarnate is pretty inexpensive. It was like $25 for the year. So if you're looking to invest in a program and you're interested in Inkarnate, it's a pretty low barrier to entry. Although there's certainly other programs out there that you might want to explore that are free, just to kind of see what you like. So we're going to go to, we can either, actually you can't see that button with my little bobblehead going there. So let's go to my no webcam version of this. It's not like you need to see my face for it. and we're going to go to create a new map. Um, so we've got a couple options depending on the kind of map that we're trying to build for this. Um, we could use a battle map segment. We could use a world map or regional map kind of thing. And you'll see that Incarnate's got a couple variations for what you might be looking for. And so there's some stuff to kind of play around with when you are building your own maps for this. Um, Battle maps are typically what I will default to because I use them the most often. I have to build them the most often, and I use a variety of platforms for that. And sometimes just drawing them out myself on Krita. I've got some videos on my channel talking about that. Um, but if you were trying to build a nice clean world design using kind of the fantasy world stuff here, is really cool. I've seen some groups that have done some really impressive work for this and been able to build some incredible hex crawl kind of campaigns out of this. Um, Cities are super helpful. I will say that a lot of map making programs don't feature simple tools to make cities, and it becomes a real pain in the butt. So it's really nice that Incarnate has that. Allows you to kind of make that middle level of detail, as does sort of the regional map, where you can kind of dial down into a city and hit some of the features here and get kind of a cool 3D representation of various segments here to give some more flavor and that kind of deal. And again, hit those segments of your map making process. Um, to be honest with you, we're gonna have to build a world map for this Domain of Dread at some point. And we will likely continue to use Incarnate for that, just since we've started with this program. We might as well use all the features and functions for it. But for today, we are going to start with a battle map. Um, this is, I will say that the way that Incarnate is designed, it really kind of focuses on this being a very focused portion. It's not, I will say that it's not necessarily built out to do full dungeon environments for this kind of thing. And so we're going to have to kind of play with some of the scaling of this to piece these out, or we might have to build this in segments. And so knowing that they're going to kind of get pieced together as we go. But this is our best option to start with, and so that's what we're going to do. Before we jump in, please remember that this is an interactive channel, so if you have thoughts, ideas, opinions, questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to share them in the chat. That's what it's there for. Love hearing from you guys as we go. So, fantasy battle map. We're going to use just a standard fantasy battle map instead of the watercolor battle maps, just because I've been playing around with them more. They both are perfectly viable. So let's go ahead and hit choose style, and we can do a variety of options in here and different resolutions as we go. We can do custom size, landscape, portrait, square. You can resize within the program as necessary. So I generally tend to just kind of pick an approximate size and go with that. It's going to tell you how many tiles they are. And so we can sort of rescale as we need to in this. For a map this size, I would frequently use a 10 by 10 scale, right? So 10 foot by 10 foot for each square. So with a square, we're looking at 400 by 400 feet potentially, which should be plenty of room for our map. So we're going to go ahead and click the square. We're going to create map. It's going to do its thing. Load, load, load. And then it takes a minute, and then it's going to give us sort of this neutral area here. Now, of course, this adventure does not take place on dry land like this. It's going to take place in the water. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to this brush tool. We're going to make sure we've got background selected because this is going to be our background layer here. Open up a catalog and go to, we're going to search ocean. And you'll see that it comes up with some of the tags that are available here, and that'll help us kind of sort. Ocean is the simplest one, and this is going to give us a bunch of different, sort of assets that we can use, different patterns for waves and that kind of thing, so we can have a whatever kind of feel we're looking for here. And so you can kind of thumbnail over these and see, you know, you can have water foam, so you can have any color you want and put that over it. You have darker sea. We've got different kinds of water with fewer waves, shallow water. We've got rocky at low tide. We've got all this kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different textures for you to play around with to get exactly the feel that you're looking for, as well as a few overlays. So we can add, seaweed and again, white foam and that kind of deal to the top of these if we're using some of these different assets. And then, of course, there are ocean assets and there are sewer assets and jungle and Fey realm and all that kind of stuff. So for ours, I think I want to do, debating between this one and this one. We can always change it. I think we're going to go with this one. And we now are kind of, we're kind of coloring it, right? Like, so we have the option of doing this with just the straight brush and just kind of painting our way through this as we go. But I will tell you that that is time consuming. And there is this handy little fill button here. So we can click on that and we can just fill the space entirely if we want to. That being said, we can use different brushes here. We can use, the shape brush, which is kind of give us a cool ragged edge to this kind of deal. We can use our grid brush here, which is going to give us sort of matched up to the grid squares. This is cool for if we're trying to do sort of a dungeon crawly kind of deal, where we can do things like show grid and change those to hexes here. Again, I just went down to this button and click show grid. So we can change the style of the grid, the different columns, we can do different shapes, all that kind of stuff. And then, back over here where we're using our grid here and now, we're kind of painting in that space. Again, super useful if we're doing kind of a hex crawl kind of deal, but we are not. So let us go ahead and turn this back to a square grid for the moment. You can leave the grid up while you design. You can put the grid down. It's entirely up to you. I frequently just kind of leave it up because I like thinking about the spatial relationships and everything. Helps me visualize it. And in this case, we want all oceans. So we're going to go ahead and hit fill. And we're going to choose this brush style here. Cool. And now we have our basic ocean here, right? So, but our design calls for a rocky arch around which this is built up. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come over to this mask tool where we can create land masses. And we're going to pop that out. And so we can change the brush size on this because this is maybe a little big for what we want right now. So let's change that to 50. And we can change the roughness on if we want to do that. We can make it an add, subtract kind of deal. Right now we're going to add. I'm just going to kind of approximate where we want this. Now, I'm thinking of this as kind of like a top-down view, which I think is one of the most common and two the most useful for a lot of these maps. And so I'm going to just kind of start filling in wherever I think this kind of fits. And again, we've got a couple different brush sizes. We got the the edge, circle, and we can use grid blocks as well, or use different shapes in this space here, or fill. We can move these areas, that kind of stuff. So I'm just not gonna think about it too much. I'm just gonna kind of put this space down here. I'm gonna make this, kind of maybe like that. Give us we can always play around with it. Give us something a little uneven, little torn, and you'll notice here that it's kind of defaulted to this grass pattern, which is not what we want. So we're going to come back over to this brush layer here. We're going to select foreground because this is now a foreground element. And we're going to go back to our catalog and we're going to check stone. I want to get rid of the ocean in there. And so get rid of one tag and search the other. And so we're going to stone. And again, we've got lots of varieties here, whether that's lava, rocks, roads, floor components, overlays, brass bricks, cobblestones, tiles, straight stone, that kind of deal. All kinds of variations on this. So again, lots that we can use to explore with and kind of get the feel that we're looking for. And none of this is, if you'll pardon the pun, none of this is set in stone. So we can, change these things up as we see fit. So I'm going to kind of go with this, you know, tell you what, let's kind of show you how that works. Let's pick something that we don't want. Let's gonna say we're gonna go with this. Actually, that might be kind of cool, but we're gonna go with this scorched ground concept here. We know ultimately that's not what we want, but we're gonna try it out. So we're gonna go with this foreground, and we're just gonna just paint in here. You'll notice that I don't have to be super precise because it's really just gonna paint in that foreground color. And I go, ooh, yeah, I don't like that. We're gonna go back to here, and we're gonna try something else. Maybe it's rocky desert. Maybe that's kind of fit what we've got. And so we'll come in and we'll paint that in. And nah, that's not gonna work either. That's a little too cartoony for what we're doing here. Doesn't really fit the mood. So we'll try this again, and you'll notice that it saves whatever tag I've got, so it makes it easy to kind of jump back and forth. And I think we're going to go with this gray ground asset. It's kind of what I played around with before, and I think it works well. Um, Although I would like it to be a little lighter than that because I don't think it quite pops. So it's going to be a lot of kind of trial and error as we do this. Um, that's the dark one. So that is the light one. That's interesting. Um, let's let's try the straight stone here. Let's see what we. I don't like that as much. All right, we're gonna go back to the other one. Um, I would really like if this was a lighter gray, and then it would kind of set itself off from the background. But then again, we're gonna have all kinds of wood structures around this to um, yeah, to offset this. Jonathan Fress says you can lighten the texture with the advanced settings. Oh, well, that's good to know. Hey, look at that. You absolutely can. So let's check the color and let's let's play with the hue a little bit. No, not what we want. We're gonna undo that. What did I just do? History. Cool. Brightness. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, maybe. Again, makes a little difference. Not a huge one. There we go. Painting on that there. Cool. That's much better. Sweet. Thanks, Jonathan. Okay, so we've kind of got our rocky arch in here set up. And so now we're going to kind of build out this stronghold around it. Um, there's a bunch of different ways that you can do this. You can do it with the line tool. You can do it with the shape tool. I'm a bigger fan of kind of playing with the shape tool in this because the line tool, we can do pen, we can do straight free draw. I'd say the pen tends to be kind of nicer on this, but uh, when I'm just building things out to start, I'm kind of looking for general shapes. So we're going to change the stroke color here, and we're going to go to ship. We're going to say tag ship components. And it will bring up here a number of structural components and walls specifically, which is where I want to start, since we have the idea that this is a number of ships that have been sort of co-opted and regrouped around this structure here. And so we pick a wall that we like. There's a bunch of different options that we could go with here. And while I'm tempted to do things like use the pirate shelter wall, I just don't think that quite is the vibe that we're looking for here. Maybe it is. We can play around with it. But I've been kind of going to this sort of standard ship's wall over here to play with. I think as kind of a default, it works for what we're doing. Um, and then I'm talking about kind of making a general shape around this and then sculpting it out. So Let's see. I we could we could do a square to kind of offset that, but it doesn't quite give me the points that I'm looking for here. And so instead, I think I'm going to go to this polygon tool, and we're going to kind of do again a rough sort of shape. And one of the things that I kind of envision for this is you've got a lot of kind of ships' prows kind of sticking out into the water all around. And that I think kind of gives it a more unique sort of shape, and I think that's going to be a little more star shaped here. We're going to have more less to do if we kind of hit with a polygon. And so let's not start there. Let's get rid of that. Let's start here. We can always move this as we need to, but let's give ourselves lots of room. And we're going to grab that. We're going to move that around. And that kind of looks a little big for me. So I think we're going to want to scale that. Let's get this down to like 50. And all I'm doing here is coming up to the selection tool and editing it directly there. And let's kind of get that shape here. We can make this a little bigger if we want, and maybe we do. It looks a little small compared to the arch here. But we got to keep in mind that this is still hundreds of feet, right? But it is a stronghold. We got lots of space, lots of stuff we want to put in there. So we don't have to be super calculated about it right now. We can kind of play around. And we could rotate it if we want to do. If we want to do that, we can change some of the opacity rather, and we can go back over here or to our line tool, and we can create some other shapes to kind of carve out of this. Like I said, I kind of imagine there being sort of the sort of the bows of ships that are kind of jutting out of this, giving it almost a spiky sort of appearance all around. And so we could do another thing where we could do another polygon kind of deal and rotate it to what we want, which might be the easiest way to go about this. Or we can use line tool and create kind of these jutting bows. But I think let's try a polygon here. Let's try another polygon. So let's just kind of get over here and actually, can we just duplicate that? Let's undo that. Let's come over here. Let's see if we can duplicate that. What if we say Control Copy, paste? Sweet. Okay. And let's rotate that. Let's try 90 degrees now. Let's see what looks good. Cool. Do something like that. And then let's see what we can do to merge these. Get both of those. And I'm experimenting here. We may not be able to merge them, but we're going to give this a go. Let's see. Offset layer. Brightness, contrast. Nope. There might not be an easy way to merge these. Let's find out. Create group. Not what I want. Can we control, move up a layer, align, select, flat? Yeah, okay. All right. That was my wild idea. It didn't work. We're going to get rid of that. And we're going to go ahead and just add this with line art here. So we're going to use our stroke stamp. Jonathan says, I like the star 4 configuration. Yeah, thank you. I've just been thinking about what this would look like, and it just makes sense to me. So Uh, but you do need to. So are you saying, Jonathan, you like this kind of pentagram configuration here, or you're saying we should add more bows to it? I'll wait and let you get in the chat. I know that we're at a uh, kind of at at a delay on this. That's a good base. Okay. Well, yeah, we can start here. That's fine. Okay, so I'm gonna pull up the adventure on another screen here. So we've kind of got a list of our rooms. So we go through and let's see. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. He says, Jonathan Frost says, I think you might be able to find stamps that are boat parts to fill it out. Yeah, you absolutely can find stamps if you go to the stamp tool here and open that up, and you can again, sure, search ship, and you can do sailing ships or ship components or just ships. And so we'll go ship components for this. And there are various stamps for this kind of thing. I have not found that they work well in creating the outer shape. Or I should say, I haven't really liked the way that they look creating the outer shape. But I like how they fill out some of the interior details as we go through. And that's one of the nice things about programs like Incarnate is you can put a lot of detail into these maps. Um, it's something that I will say that personally I struggle with because when I have a high detailed map, I really get kind of lost in the details on it sometimes. Whereas when I have a lower detail map, I tend to be faster and more fluid with it and less worried about what's drawing out everything that's in every particular room and focusing more on the overall structure. But it's a personal preference on whatever you want to do here. A lot of people like these details, and there's a lot of them you can toss in here. So lots and lots of options. But we're gonna you want to try boat? Sure. Yeah, boat's gonna give us physical boats here, which again, fine for the right map that we're using, but not quite the assets that we need for this. Um, and again, that's kind of getting into the nitty gritty here and the details. And frankly, we're not ready to get into some of the details of this yet. Um, we're still kind of building out general shapes here. And to be completely honest, we're going to need multiple floors for this. So I want to go ahead and start uh, giving this thing some general shape, and then we're going to start building out some of the rough shapes of the rooms and how they fit together. Because we're going to have to think about how all of this kind of pieces together overall, especially considering we've put in here what's flooded, what's not flooded, and we've done a lot of planning on that part as well. So let's go ahead and I'm going to start by putting some decking on the ground here just to kind of give us a differentiation between the water and the uh, the water and sort of this stone arch. And again, that begs the question of whether or not we want to start in our what layer we want to start in here. Um, let's start with our half flooded, shall we? Our half flooded spaces. Let's do that. And so we won't use decking here to start. We'll use a different watercolor because we're going to have effectively 3 levels to this, right? We're going to have half flooded, we're going to have flooded, and then we're going to have our not flooded pieces here. And so we're likely going to have to make 3 different kind of versions of this map here. And that's going to take us a few sessions to do. So let's just focus on one to start and go from there. So let's come back over here. Let's get rid of the stone. Let's say ocean. And we got water assets. And let's find something that's kind of shallow water. We've got a couple here. I wonder under ocean what we've got. That kind of looks okay for me. maybe that. Something that just kind of hints at the lighter detail here. Again, I can get way into the weeds on this. And we're going to, again, just kind of, well, we want background selected. We're going to kind of paint in that general shape here. And you don't have to do this first. I just find doing some of this, frankly, some of this like flooring color here and selecting this helps me kind of better visualize the spaces that we're in, and helps me as I kind of work through this in my own brain. Um, yeah, and I don't like the shape of that arch, but we're going to deal with it for the moment. Okay, so let's go ahead and come back over to our shape here, because one of our first places that is half flooded is the gatehouse. And so we need to figure out where our gatehouse is. We can put it on any of these sides. For whatever reason, I just kind of picture it over here. Um, and, uh, and so what we're going to do is we're going to come over to this portals option here. Um, and we're going to come over to our shape, and we're going to pick a place um, that kind of works for us here, keeping the size of the gate in mind. Now, this is a gatehouse, right? And so it's relatively large. So I kind of figure we're looking at maybe a a 20-foot gate or something like that. So we're just going to kind of click and drag, kind of getting to our size here. And that's going to create this opening here, which we're going to put a gate into, because otherwise we have this kind of hard line between the two distinctions here. And we want the detail there. Ben Elder says, "Hey, RJ, I know it's all about the map today, but I had an idea for a hazard. Maybe part of the flooded area have kelp seaweed that acts like grasping vines, fail a survival check, and get restrained underwater. Yeah, yeah, that could be good. That could absolutely be good. And we've got some textures for that we can toss in, and something to keep in mind while we're doing the map here, since it's kind of a visual hazard too, something that the players might be able to see. So yeah, cool idea. And thank you. You said you're liking the map so far. Appreciate it. Super early into the process, but that's kind of my creative process here. So we just kind of work through this in steps, and change and update and modify things as we go. So we've kind of got our gatehouse here. Um, I kind of envisioned, this is where we can kind of come back over to the stamps here and open this catalog. And let's go back to ship components. And because we're not going to find a gate right here necessarily, we'll find, ship doors and that kind of thing, which we could work into there. Um, but this is where I kind of think about these sort of these bowsprits, right? Maybe some of the design is that those are kind of flanking our gatehouse here. But before we do that, let's just put in gate. And let's figure out what we want. Now, we talked about this being sort of a portcullis style thing, so being metal, and so kind of iron and steel. We could use this. Hellgate looks appropriately rusted to me, and so maybe we use that. So let's click on that, and you'll notice that there's a couple different kind of options that we get for this. And so we're going to do a couple things here. We're going to, one, we need to scale this down, so we'll probably hit this at 50, which means we might use our double one here. We'll see. Nah, not quite. Okay. And we may have to scale this up. So let's try 75 to start. That kind of fits. We'll rotate, and then we're going to hit the rotational angle here, and which we can just do right here in the scroll bar if I'm being honest. We can kind of put that in here. And we can put it in place and we can reposition as we need to. It's just a rough sort of deal. Um, so we kind of have that in place there, and we're going to want to add a little more, a few other details to it. I think, not necessarily right away, but I, for example, am not a huge fan of um, kind of how this lines up. It looks like we've kind of could just use stamps, right? We've kind of pasted things on top of each other, and so we'll want to use some other stamps to kind of make this look a little more natural. Um, and play with that there. Ben Elder says sometimes I use bridges for gates with some sort of tower bastion on either side if I can't find a gate that fits the look. Yeah, that's one of the cool things about these programs is that while yes these things are defined as gates and what have you, you can really use whatever kind of suits your vibe for this kind of thing. Um, you don't have to stick with what they're defined as if you can use them. And I've seen some pretty ingenious stuff where people have built whole like wells and things like that out of different assets and pieces to really give the aesthetic that they're looking for. And done some really cool design work on that. Um, I will be honest, I am more of a writer than an artist, and or a visual artist, I should say. And so, uh, you know, there are certainly better tutorials for this out there than me. This is just me kind of building this and framing this into our own ideation here. So gatehouse, let's see here. We have our general spot here. We probably want to define that area. It's going to be, so we're going to come over to this pen tool here, and we are going to add some lines here. Um, and we just kind of want to figure out how big this gatehouse is. We've talked about the space, but it probably leads into a little bit of a courtyard too. Um, we might have some side buildings on this kind of deal here, um, kind of over here as well. Um, and yeah, so maybe we draw some of that out here. So let's give ourselves uh, just some smallish. Oh, crud. We're gonna get rid of that because our scale isn't right. We're at 59 instead of 50. Okay, try this again. And ooh, that's probably too big. That's probably too big. Let's say here, and there's a lot. I find that when I do this, there's a lot of, you know, Control Z, undo as we work on this. Kind of have that general layout here. Um, I'm not too worried in this design about making things at proper right angles and having them fit perfectly, specifically because it's the idea is it's all repurposed stuff, right? So they're not going to have the best materials or the perfect material for everything that they're looking for, and so I think that having things just be a little off kilter in some places is not a bad thing as we go about this. Cool. So two sort of general shapes here. We create sort of this organic gatehouse space here. And we might, get in here and put another portcullis in here or something along those lines. Or we might decide to move that back. Um, we could pop that back here as well if we wanted to do that. With the rough kind of painter tool here, we don't have as hard of a line between those two. Although I'll say that line bothers me a little bit here. Still, I think this probably makes more sense back in here since we've been talking about some of the net traps and that kind of stuff that's in this space. So we'll start there. We'll come back to our line tool and maybe start building out sort of a courtyard kind of space here, which we don't have on our list of keyed locations. But we always knew there was going to be spaces that we're going to, as we build them, are just kind of going to make sense, um, and as we and that we're going to need to add in. That being said, if we come back over to our list of flooded and half flooded and non-flooded sort of areas, we've got things like room 1, which is our gatehouse, or area 1, which is our gatehouse, area 2, which are our guard posts, which we've added in here. And we'll need to add a few more kind of around the facility as well. So maybe we'll do that next. And then we have, let's see, area 3, area 6, and area 14. So let's take a look at those. Area 3 is the throne room, which we'll need to build into this level. Area 6 is the Great Hall. Probably connects to the throne room in some capacity here. And then area 14 is the prison cells. So we'll need to put in this on this level as well. Which I gotta say is kind of an interesting configuration. You don't expect prison cells to be on the same level as a throne room, but with the necessity of making some things flooded and others half flooded and others dry, as a Suhuagin would have, building these things out in this sort of unusual pattern would make sense. So let's see here. I want to just using my space bar to kind of click and drag and reposition the map here, because we are going to continue building out some of these guard posts. Now, we have, we want to put guard posts in places where they make sense. We don't want to put too many in here, but we can kind of use them to define the outer shape as we go and see how some of these other rooms would fit in. And so, I would definitely put one at each of the corners. And so we'll probably start there, and then we might, if it's not too cluttered, put some in the middle here. We'll see. But I know we already have kind of this space here. We're still going to put little ones in the corners here, just to see how that goes, and because my brain craves some symmetry. And so let's go ahead and kind of make those shapes there. Yeah. So Jonathan Frost says that layout will add to the alien feel of the location, sort of a subverted expectations effect. I like it. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. That is a good point to be made here, is that we don't want, this is an aquatic civilization. It's not a terrestrial group, and they're going to have thought through things differently than, say, a colony of elves or dwarves or what have you. And so giving it a little bit of that, making it a little bit different from what we might expect in other circumstances is certainly not a bad idea. And so it gives us a little room to kind of play around with that stuff here. And I'm kind of noticing some of these rooms may appear a little small, but then again, they're just guard posts. They don't necessarily need to take up a lot of space. So we may play with the the scale on this at some point, but we'll see. And again, not worrying too much about everything being even as we go through here, kind of making it look a little ad hoc as we do. So, yeah, I think that we got some space in the middle for some smaller guard posts kind of here. And that gives us a little bit, and frankly gives us some more encounters, gives us some places to sneak through and that kind of deal. So let's go ahead and toss those in here. Let's just say something like that. Here and here. And we'll toss one up here too. Cool. So now we got these little cubbyhole rooms. And we're going to want to put some doors on those. So let's come back down to our portal tool here. And let's Let's add some small doors. You know, that's probably good. Probably have one put on the side over here. There. There. Cool. We could resize these doors if we wanted to, but I think for the time being, this is probably good. Okay. All right. And so we've got some spaces for the portals there. We don't necessarily have to jump in and start putting in doors right away. But I think it's going to help me kind of sort through my vision of this early on if we do that. So we're going to go back to doors. And we're going to see what we got. All kinds of options. Like this is the ship doors, and those are ship doors as well. Let's see how these look. We've got a couple variations here. We kind of have these inset sort of doors. And we're going to drop those to 50. And this is also where kind of the tooltips become a pain in the butt, I think. It's just getting everything oriented. So we're going to click that into place. I'm going to zoom in here so I can kind of see some of the detail, and then we're going to rotate that. And maybe reposition just ever so slightly. Cool. So we have kind of this inset here with the door. I don't dislike that. I think that works. And let's go ahead and do that for the rest of these. And rotate. Move. Cool. And rinse and repeat. I do have a question for you guys while you're thinking about this. As we, a lot of the map making process can be a little repetitive. And I would be curious to know if you want me to do multiple videos in this sort of thing, or if you just want me to do some of this stuff off screen. What do you want in terms of the map making program? Do you want me to do all the repetitive work off screen and then come back for stuff that's a little bit different, talking about my methodology there? Do you want me to go into another adventure after this? I'd love to get your feedback. So whether that's live or in the recap, we got some time between now and Wednesday, so plenty of time to review that. Okay. Almost there. And as I've said at other times, when we've done other maps, I will frequently, when I do this kind of stuff, just toss in something to listen to, audiobooks, some music, something on YouTube, maybe a live play or something like that, and just kind of use that to help me kind of find a groove and do some of this repetitive work, as we're seeing here. Cool. Now we got all these doors. We've got a little bit of space here. And we are ready to start adding some other rooms. So we were talking about we need the Great Hall, we need the throne room, and then we need prison cells. And so let's let's think about how these would get positioned. Um, I think, hmm, I kind of have this idea of maybe putting the prison cells kind of over here somewhere. Um, it makes them kind of easy to access, but then again, there's like because there's just so much more. There's so much space down here that it seems like that's sort of where we put the Great Hall and our throne room as we go. And so, kind of building these out, I think we're going to have a fair amount of courtyard space kind of in here as we go, which is frankly not something I had completely pictured, but it makes sense for kind of the castle-like structure. Um, and so we could put a little prison over here somewhere, kind of off to the side. Um, is Yeah, could be useful here. We got a comment here. Ben Elder says, personally, I think recap as you write it can get a bit repetitive. So I think a rundown and explanation could be more streamlined. For the maps, you mean, uh, or do you mean for all of what we're doing? Um, Let me know. Uh, all right. So yeah, let's. Yes, for the maps. Okay, cool. Yeah, I completely agree. It does get very repetitive because we're doing the same thing over and over and over again. Okay, so let's go ahead and um, uh, Jonathan Bross says, I think if you want to finish the floor plan and then live stream the detail, I'm cool with that. Okay, terrific. Like I said, I try not to do too much stuff off screen here because I don't want you to end up in a situation where it's like we do this and this, and then some magic happens, uh, and uh, and then we have a finished product because that's not useful to anybody. But at the same time, don't want to waste your time while we're just kind of doing the same thing over and over again. So let's see how we want to fit this kind of prison in here. We've got some odd spaces, which I like. Odd spaces are fun. So let's maybe connect. Let's lean into odd spaces here. Let's kind of do one of these things and make this kind of a triangular sort of shape here. I don't like how that merges though. So let's get rid of that and let's do our shape tool here and we'll use our pen for that. Probably should have used the pen for a lot of these here, but it is what it is. Okay. And let's again lean into that triangular sort of shape here. What the hell just happened there? I mean, I'm not mad about that, but that's not what I was looking for. Okay. Yeah, just recopy that. All right, I guess we're using our pen tool. All right, here we are. Anyway, so why don't we just kind of put this on here, and instead of you guys watching me play with this over and over and over again, we go ahead and start putting a pin in it for the evening here. Like I said, we're working on getting our basic floor plan together here. It's going to be a lot of the same kind of stuff as we do this. The different levels. I'll kind of recap what I've done with it, what was different between them as I work on this off screen in terms of getting the floor plan in, and then we'll come back together for the details. So to that end, I think what we're going to do is that on Wednesday, we're going to pick back up with working on the next segment. So one of the new adventures that we're building out is part of this. As part of our campaign here, and then we'll kind of touch base with the map periodically in our live streams when there's significant progress that I can kind of recap and talk to you guys about because these things will take a little while to put together. And there's plenty of other work we can do in the meantime. So, Fantastic. Thanks everybody for joining me today. I hope that playing around with Incarnate was fun for you guys as well. And uh, let's see here. Quick question: is your next stream at a later time? So thanks, Ben. That brings up a good point. Wednesday, no, is at the regular time. It's going to be 6 p.m. And it will be at 6 p.m. It should show 6 p.m. on YouTube unless I messed up the scheduling. But Friday, I'm going to have one at a later time. It'll be at 8:30 Central Time. So it'll be about 2.5 hours later, because I have a regular Friday game that I get to DM, and so I'm going to run it after that. So there's going to be 3 live streams this week if you want to join me for those, so we can really dig in and get some more work done on our campaign here and make some more progress as we go. Cool. Thank you, everybody, for joining me tonight. If you enjoy this kind of content, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. All that stuff helps the channel grow and helps more people find our chat here. And our project brings more creative people together, which I think is just a lot of fun. As always, if you want to jump into one of my tables, you want to check out one of my games, you can find me at startplaying.games/GM/RJ Kerr. You can find all of my tables online there. And please feel free to reach out with custom game requests if there's something specific that you want to do, or there's not a game for that time that you're looking for, or whether that's one shots or campaigns or what have you, or you want something completely custom and unique to your group. Happy to help you with that as well. So with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Let's see your couple last comments. Ben Elder says, I would join Friday, but that's 2:30 a.m. for me. Yeah, I understand time difference there. It makes it difficult, but we'll have the re-recording, the recording on there for you, so you can catch up with what we're doing there. And I will see all of you on, what would be Wednesday my time. And who knows, depending on what time zone you're in. So thanks again, and I will catch up with you all later. Bye now.